All right, well, welcome. I'm Katie Gibbs, the Executive Director of Evidence for Democracy. We are Canada's leading nonpartisan, nonprofit organization promoting evidence-based decision-making. We exist to give a voice to the science and smart decision-making that's needed for a healthy democracy. I'm happy to be joined today by three members of Parliament. We have Liberal MP Marc Garneau, who is also his party's critic for foreign affairs and international trade. We have NDP MP and official opposition science and technology critic Kennedy Stewart, and Green Party MP and leader Elizabeth May. And we're also joined by Evidence for Democracy co-founder and board member Dr. Scott Finley. So we're here today to launch the Science Pledge. Evidence for Democracy is asking members of Parliament, candidates, organizations, and citizens to pledge their support for science and smart decision-making ahead of the next federal election. The pledge is the first part of our plan to highlight the importance of science and smart decision-making in this important election year. To my knowledge, this is the first time Canadian scientists and the public are mobilizing to promote public science and evidence-based decision-making as a federal election issue. The last few years haven't been very good for scientists in Canada. We've seen new communication policies that restrict what government scientists can say to the media and how they can share their research with the public. We've seen drastic funding cuts for important government research and environmental monitoring. And we've seen a growing number of policy decisions that disregard the available evidence. These changes aren't just bad for scientists, they're bad for Canadians. This is the essential public science that keeps Canadians safe, healthy, and prosperous. It's research that keeps our air and water safe. It's research that makes sure the medicine that your doctor gives you is safe. It's research that helps protect the iconic wildlife that is part of our Canadian identity. And it's research that tells us how to best mitigate social problems like crime and poverty. This is the research that has helped make us who we are as a nation, and it's research that will help define who we are in the future. So I'm thrilled to be launching the pledge today with three MPs from various political stripes, because government decision-making and transparent decision-making is at the core of a healthy and prosperous democracy. In a minute, they'll each explain in their own words why they're taking the pledge today. And we're here today as well to encourage all members of Parliament and all candidates in the next federal election to visit sciencepledge.ca to pledge their support for public interest science and smart decision-making. But we also want to reinforce that the pledge isn't just for candidates. All Canadians can help to strengthen our science and democracy by signing the Science Pledge to support science and decision-making, by voting for candidates who have also signed the pledge. It's only through this shared commitment to science and smart decision-making that we can truly achieve a thriving democracy. So on that note, I'm going to invite Marc Garneau up to take the Science Pledge.
Thank you. I'll just sign my name here. That's the hardest. Gotta remember my existing writing.
That's true.
Gonna change. Shall I?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to take this pledge today. En tant que scientifique, pour moi, ça a toujours été important de reconnaître l'importance de la science pour notre santé, pour notre sécurité, pour notre prospérité. Et c'est pour cette raison-là que j'appuie fortement l'engagement que je prends aujourd'hui. As parliamentarians, we need to be guided by the best scientific evidence available. This is not something that has been happening in the 9 years that I've been watching this government. Getting rid of the long-form census is one example. the decision to stop financing the Experimental Lakes area, one of the finest outdoor laboratories, very important for Canada. The focus away from fundamental and basic science, which is important as part of the full spectrum of scientific research, the muzzling of our scientists, all of these things are totally unacceptable for a government. And I congratulate Evidence for Democracy for their initiative. Il est absolument essentiel que tous les députés dans le Parlement fédéral soient guidés par la science dans nos prises de position. C'est ce qui rendra nos lois les meilleures pour tous les Canadiens. Alors, merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Mark. And now I will invite Kennedy Stewart up to take the Science Pledge.
There we go. I must hold it up here. That's great. So very proud to sign this pledge today, and really hope other Canadians do this, as well as all other parliamentarians. First, like to thank Evidence for Democracy for putting this together, really being a champion, really a guiding light for scientists across Canada, to show them that it's worth speaking up, because you will get results, and you have to speak up in order to change things that are happening here in Ottawa. So there really is a war on science here in Canada. Under the Conservative government, they have cut over $1 billion from science funding. They have fired over 4,000 scientists and researchers. And of course, we're now known worldwide for not allowing our researchers to speak because they're muzzled. So these are three major problems. The NDP, of course, has committed to a number of pledges that we'd like to see when we form government in 2015. The first would be, of course, to restore the long-form census. The second is to bring in a parliamentary science officer. In the past, we've had a chief scientific advisor that has directly advised the Prime Minister and Cabinet, but we want to take the next step. We want to bring a new thing to Canada, which is the parliamentary science officer, which would be kind of like having an auditor general for science or a parliamentary budget officer for science right in the House of Commons, that would not only advise governments, but this advice would be public. So this is something that I have a bill put forward in the House of Commons, and that we support as a party, and we'll be moving forward with this idea. So we need to not only restore what we've had, but we have to make things better. And this pledge is part of this, is to say not only do we believe in science and that we think that this is our way forward, it is our future, we have to reinvest and we have to do new things to boost discovery and innovation in Canada. So again, very proud to sign this today and encourage other Canadians to do so.
Great. Thank you very much, Kennedy Stewart. And last but not least, I'll invite up Elizabeth May to take the Science Pledge.
Thank you. And while I sign this, I just want to say it's an honor to be here with my colleagues from the Liberal and New Democratic Party, and to say that I'm also very proud to support Kennedy Stewart's bill, which would create the Office for Science in the Government of Canada. I have a bill that I'll be presenting, I hope, before Parliament rises, that will ensure that government science be always made public. Je suis fière d'être ici parmi mes collègues pour un moment pour donner mon appui pour les efforts pour protéger la science au Canada, mais aussi en tant que chef de Parti vert, je veux souligner que l'appui, ce n'est pas seulement de moi-même, mais pour tous les candidats du Parti vert du Canada. In particular, I want to mention our science critic, who is running in a new riding of Burnaby North Seymour, but Dr. Lynn Quarmby, who's the head of a department for cellular biology at Simon Fraser University, is very active and engaged to ensure that at every moment that we have the chance in the upcoming election campaign, we'll be making the case for rebuilding scientific capacity in the Government of Canada, for the support for science, and for putting an end to what the Conservatives have done in ideological blinders around science. I want to thank Dr. Katie Gibbs and Dr. Scott Finley and Evidence for Democracy, and point out that when Dr. Gibbs says that this is the first time that scientists have ever become active in an election campaign to talk about science and access to science by Canadians, there's a reason it's the first time. This is the first time in the history of Canada we've ever had an administration that thought it was appropriate to gag scientists. It's never happened before. It's never happened that we've had ideological decisions about cutting whole departments, such as the Marine Contaminants Program. 80 scientists across Canada, all fired. Dr. Peter Ross, who led that program, is now at the Vancouver Aquarium. But many of our best scientists are going to other countries. We've lost our scientific capacity within the Government of Canada for Parks Canada. All the scientists who are working in Parks Canada, tracking ecological integrity, progress for species at risk, all laid off. We've had significant damage done to scientific capacity in this government, and it has simply never happened before. And it must not ever happen again. And I think that all opposition parties on this issue, perhaps more than any other, are united in ensuring that in the next parliament, which will likely be a minority parliament where cooperation will be more evident than it has been in the last number of years, we can take the steps that are necessary to unmuzzle scientists, to ensure they can apply for research without checking with political hires up, to make sure that we rebuild and reinvest in the scientific capacity of the Government of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'd like to again thank Mark Garneau, Kennedy Stewart, and Elizabeth May for being the first MPs to take the Science Pledge today. We would again encourage all MPs and candidates in the next election to go to sciencepledge.ca, take the Science Pledge to show their support for science and smart decision making, and hopefully we can make this the first time we really